Okay. Why, when the relationship is over, do they come around again after weeks, months, etc.? What is that about, especially when they know we have them figured out? Usually, well, in my experience, when they know that I've figured it out, they usually don't try to hoover. Usually they run away. They don't want to confront that. They go find an easy victim. Usually, when I'm not vocal about that, or I didn't like really press the issue, then they'll come back around. And what I've noticed from most other people's experiences, it's kind of similar. Um, why are they coming back around? Is that they want some sort of narcissistic supply. There's something they want from you. Usually, if they're really wrapped up in a new supply and a new person, it could be a really long time before they come back around to you. And, they talk about it like a Rolodex, like the old way people used to store contact and, like little cards on this like spinning thing. And it's kind of like that, where they always remember that they have you. And nowadays, I think, with social media and all that, it's so much easier to find someone. Like 20 years ago, if you got rid of your phone number and changed your phone number, maybe no one would ever find you again. But nowadays it's a lot easier to find people, and they just Googling your name or whatever, they could find you. But usually they'll wait until their next supply ran out, or that person starts to rebel, or that person starts to figure it out, and now they're desperate for another supply. And because it takes them so long to cultivate a victim, to groom the victim, to, first of all, to find the precise victim, right? And then to put in all that effort and time and energy to get to that person, to the point where they're utilizing them as their punching bag, essentially, to abuse on them. It takes a long time, a lot of effort, which is why it's a lot easier to go back to a person from before. And if the person isn't ready, if the person hadn't figured it out, doesn't know that they're a narcissist or sociopath or psychopath or borderline, hasn't really figured out what's going on, they might, be susceptible to going back. That's one of the dangers, is that they don't realize. And because, when they come around for that hoovering, the initial stage is usually super wonderful. It starts out with, I love you, I miss you, you're so amazing. Or there's the ones who are, wrapped up in the sex, and they'll just be like, I miss the great sex we had, that kind of thing. Whatever they can to trigger some sort of feeling in you. So like if you're a person, like love is very important to you, and like the emotional connection is very important to you, they're going to cultivate that, they're going to try to like trigger that. And anything they can do to make you think that they've changed. And as long as they can plant that seed of hope that they've changed, they know that they can get you back into that game, where they'll get you hooked again, and then you'll go on and it'll be great for a little while, maybe you're not noticing, and then they can go ahead and start the abuse again. Oh, it looks like you added something here. Wait. Sadism to inject more hurt again when they know we are getting back on our feet. Yeah, that's definitely possible. Like the ones who are more sadistic, maybe he found out through the grapevine that you're doing better, or somebody spied on you on your Facebook or something, and maybe you just looked happy, or maybe you made a happy post, and then he was like, well, I'm going to have to go ruin that. Maybe he actually didn't want anything from you. Maybe he just wanted to make you upset, to hurt you, to get supply in that sort of sense. That's definitely possible. He got worse, and I told him so, and he knows I see him as a narcopath. Yeah. Did he recently try to hoover you? Is that why you're asking this? No. You're just wondering like his response maybe to an email or something, that sadistic sort of response where he said or did whatever just to upset you. That's quite possible. sometimes people do that just because like they can't stand to see you getting ahead, or having fun or enjoying life or being successful. Narcissistic parents are really notorious for this. If their child, reaches some level of success or happiness, the worst part is that when they're so covert, the parent or maybe the ex is like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. You're doing so great. Oh, it's just wonderful. But it's actually just fake. And then every chance they get, they start undermining, and saying these like little digs in disguise, or tell you things, that get you to doubt yourself or doubt your success, or maybe even like lose your momentum, that you've got going on. When I first found out about his cheating, he disappeared. I broke no contact, and even though he knows I know everything now, he still would not confess. He continued to lie. Yeah. He disappeared because he didn't want to confront it. I'm sure he didn't want to deal with it. You figured it out. You knew what was going on. Even like, like you said, you caught him like red-handed, and even though you're long gone and he knows he's still not going to get you back, he's still not going to admit it because, in one way, one sadistic thing would be to admit it just to hurt you, right? Just be like, yeah, I did it and I liked it and I hurt you. But in his case, it sounds more like he's more concerned about his public perception. And so he wants to walk away from this saying he's perfect. He did everything right. He didn't do anything wrong. And that's why he's still lying to you. That's why he's not going to tell you, what the truth was, even though you knew it, even though you caught him red-handed, avoiding it, evading it, omitting the truth, right? Like lies by omission, where you probably heard this. He'll give you a few little grains of truth, but then leave out like the major part of that story. And, that's purposely done that way. That's the plausible deniability, where you're left like doubting and second guessing yourself, and feeling bad for even suggesting the fact, which makes me feel like he will try to hurt me. It's possible. I think you should still be very careful, especially because of, the people in your neighborhood and whatnot, and, his flying monkeys and his family and such. But, definitely don't reach out to him anymore. Don't respond to him, no matter what he says, no matter what, whether it's to piss you off and get you to go in there and attack him back, that's a trap. Or whether it's, gee, you're totally right, and I was really wrong, and I was awful, and I finally see the light. Don't go for either one of those. Both ways are going to be a trap. You know him now. He's all about his image, yes, so he will never confess, and he likes to provoke me. Yeah. Yeah, he's not going to confess because he's more worried about the public opinion, his image, even though he doesn't even live there, but because he's from there and he knows people, it's important to him. And yeah, he's going to provoke you to get a response, which is only going to hurt you, because if you give him any chance to get near you, to provoke you, to send you any sort of message or phone call or online, anything, it's just going to upset you and it's going to set you back. And by now he knows, after all those years, like he knows exactly which buttons to push. He knows exactly where your vulnerabilities are, and he will use those things, to make you upset. Even if you don't make some public display of it, even if he just knows that, he just ruined your day or your week and you're just going to be home and sad and alone, maybe that just makes him smile, and it's really sick, really, really sick, that kind of sadism and stuff. I wouldn't go anywhere near that at all. I think the only reason, the only reason that, you know, he responded at any point was really just to throw it in your face. You know, when you reached out to him and then, you know, he called just to see if you'd changed your number or whatever that was, like, it was just to throw it in your face. Like, he will never, ever make it right. He's never going to admit that to you. I know it's the hardest part when, like, you have, like, the actual proof, like hardcore evidence, and they still won't tell you the truth. And, like, it's almost like for so many times I just felt like I couldn't let go until they would admit the truth. And then finally I realized, like, that was just never, ever going to happen. Never, ever going to happen. And I had to give that to myself. I had to tell myself, okay, look, I saw it. This is as close to, you know, the maximum amount of proof that I could get. This is real. This is what I needed to validate my intuition, because I wasn't trusting myself. You know, I was second guessing myself. I was doubting myself. I finally see it now. And I'm not going to doubt this. Like, I see it. I understand it. And even if he never admits it, you don't need him to. You know the reality. You know what the truth is. And, you know, I think that's a big part of the self-trust in moving forward, right? Is to give that to yourself, you know, to say, I figured it out. I get it. I know what it is. I know what he did. I know the truth. And even if he never, ever admits that, it doesn't make that truth not real. You know, even if he never admits it, even if he always avoids that and never, ever tells the truth, you know what the truth is. And so you got to give that to yourself. You got to trust yourself and say, look, I know what the truth is. I know what happened. I know I was right about this. And I know he was really, really wrong to do that. And that's it. Like, that's all the further you can get with him. And then you move forward knowing that you knew the truth. And that if you should ever see anything even remotely similar to that, you would be out of there so quick, because you get it now. Like, you see it, you know. And when you finally accept that, when you finally give yourself that self-trust too, which is like, I knew it and I saw it, and here's the evidence. Like, I saw the evidence. That's all you have to give yourself, to trust yourself again. You know, don't wait for him. Don't wait for him to say he's sorry or to make it right, or to even just admit what he did, because it's probably never, ever going to happen. You know, I think yours is one of the more covert types, you know, and those guys just don't admit it. Sometimes the overt types like to say things just to throw it in your face and just to watch you squirm and to watch you hurt and to watch you in pain. They're sadistic for sure. They're just more overt. Like, they don't mind the fact that you know, because they revel in it. And I guess they just assume no one else will ever believe you. But the most covert types, they'll never admit it. They'll never admit it. You were lucky that you got that proof, you know, like really, really lucky that you got that. Sometimes people never get any proof, you know, like any hardcore evidence, like they know it, you know, and then they continue to doubt their intuition and their sense of self-trust because they just can't put their finger on it. Like, there's no actual hardcore proof. And that's where people really run the danger of, like, feeling like they're losing their sanity because they can't see the truth. You know, my last covert ex, I couldn't catch him in the lie. Like, I knew he was cheating. I knew he was lying. I couldn't catch him. And then finally he went away for several days, and, you know, he knew that synchronicity was really important to me. Synchronicity is like, you know, meaningful coincidences, right? And he knew that I put a lot of faith in the universe and synchronicity. And I had seen this ad for a hotel that we stayed at in Las Vegas. And I texted him, you know, it's so weird. I just saw this ad for that hotel we stayed at. And he responded, I saw the same ad in the magazine I was reading. And I immediately in my body, I was like, that's a lie. No, he didn't. I know he didn't. I was like, did you really see that in your magazine? Yeah, I swear I did. And then he moved on immediately to the next topic. And I was like, no. And so I was like, so that, what magazine was that you were reading? And he told me what it was. And I went to the bookstore and I got that magazine and I looked through every single page. And it wasn't in there. Of course it wasn't. They don't even have ads like that. It was like a men's fashion magazine. And then, so just to double check, because I still didn't want to trust myself, I asked him, like, you know, so what articles did you read in the magazine when he got back? You know, just to, like, pretending to be like it was just conversation over coffee. And he told me about 2 or 3 different articles in that magazine, and they were the exact articles I went back and I looked and like, yep, that's in that and that. We're talking about the same magazine here, and there was no ad. And that's when I knew the extent of his lying. Like he would go to the extreme of using something that he knew was really important to me, that I put a lot of faith in, and lie about that, to get me to still have faith in him. And it's very sick, very sick. So they don't admit it, I also find with other narcs in his life, they bury everything under the carpet, and they feel that after a number of years that everything should be forgotten. And I'm the problem because I do not live like that. Time does not make shit okay. Yeah, there are a lot of them that do that, where they'll think that just because time goes by that you're just going to forget it and go on like they do. But that's not the case. Like it's unbelievable how they'll disappear for a while sometimes, and then they'll come back with an "I love you" or "I miss you" months later or years later, and they actually expect you to have just forgotten all about that, just because that's where they are. Like they already wrote that off. They already, that never happened, and they're just going to approach it that way. I've heard this story from so many people, and that is usually how the hoover goes, is it goes right in with the whole "I love you." And it's like, wait, what? Like, what about all that other stuff that happened, or like when you're a kid growing up with a narcissistic parent, right? And like the night before or an hour before, the parent is like yelling, like monster face, cruel. And then they go away, and then an hour later, they're like, "Hi, honey, do you want some whatever?" And you're like, how did we go from that to that, Or like children of alcoholics. I've heard as adults them say, they were a kid, maybe dad was an alcoholic, and he came in the door and they didn't know, like, was this going to be the raging dad or like the happy dad or the tired dad? And dad came in the door and they were like waiting to see what kind of personality would be there. And maybe he was like drunk and raging and angry and yelled at the kids or beat the kids. And then he goes to bed. And then the next morning the kids get up and the alcoholic father's like, "Hey, good morning." And they're like, how did we go from that to this, and to believe that should have "I love you." Yeah. They expect you to believe that. They expect you just to go on like nothing happened because they put it aside. They put it away. So you should too. You should just wipe that away. Just get on with it. Just go along with it. Right. But that's not how it works. And you don't have to go along with that, and don't go along with that. And that's why you don't want to respond to those hoovering attempts, because it's all a trap, and if somebody comes back with an "I love you" and "I miss you" months after they treated you like shit, what does that say? That says that person doesn't give a shit about you. If they could go from that to "I love you, everything's great," clearly they're not in the same reality as you. They're not at all living in the same reality. Looks like a couple more people just joined us. Hey, everybody. Feel free to write in the chat, or if you would like to use your voice, you're welcome to unmute yourself. Please keep in mind that your voice will be on the YouTube recording afterward. So if you want to be anonymous, you can write in the chat and I won't say your name. We were just talking about the hoovering attempts, how, people can come back months and years later as if nothing ever happened. Yeah, they are a little minority of narcs, and I no longer give a shit about them. At least I know now that it was never me. I was too honest for them. Yeah, it wasn't you. It wasn't you at all. They can't survive long term with people who want to know the truth, with people who are going to call out the truth. The only way they can survive long term in a relationship is with a severe enabler. someone who's always going to be excuse making and rationalizing and, you know, continually enabling the behavior. It's the only way they can, you know, survive in a couple, in a business partnership, in friendship. You know, the only way, well, it could be two narcs that are feeding off of each other. Of course, they're each getting supply of each other. But if they get the opposite, the codependent, you know, the only way that lasts a long time is if that codependent is a severe enabler. You know, they just keep going and going and going. But that's not you. Like, you figured it out. You wanted to know the truth. Some people don't want to know the truth. You know, some people would rather live the beautiful lie, the beautiful illusion, that rather than facing the ugly truth. And I'm like you. I'd rather know the truth. I don't care how ugly it is. I'd rather look at it straight in the face and know what the truth is and know where I stand than to not know. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, you're not compatible with narcissists anymore because you figured it out. You're working on yourself. You're becoming aware of more and more and more, you know, and you see it so clearly. Damn right. Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to fall prey to that anymore because you see it now, you recognize it now, and you want nothing to do with it. You know, if you were still trying to find reasons, you know, that maybe it could work out, or trying to find hope and faith that he would change, and I would say the prognosis isn't as good. That prognosis probably means that person's going to go back, you know, either back for more with that person or fall into another one again. But the more you educate yourself, the more aware you are, the more clear you are, you know, and the more solid you are with your boundaries. Like, I'm never going back to that. I don't want that ever again. I'd rather know the truth, and I'm not going to enable this kind of behavior anymore. No matter how beautiful it looks at the beginning or on the surface, no matter how amazing the sex is, you know, none of that matters. What matters is that interpersonal connection, you know, the intimacy between two people, the realness, the honesty of that, you know, and, you know, it really makes you look at your friends list too. Like, for me, that was a big thing, was looking at, you know, what other toxic friends did I have in my life? Like, where was I enabling unhealthy interactions with people? You know, where was I willing to stand for superficial friendships versus let's talk real, you know? I think I hear someone want to say something?
I'm sorry, I just coughed. Continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're fine. Did you want to say something?
I actually have a couple of comments, but one, you just reminded me of something else, and they all have to do with the same subject. It's about energy. Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't hear myself for some reason. But anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Okay, so I hadn't heard anything from my ex-boyfriend since last November, and we have been no contact for 7 months. And then 6 weeks later, he texted me. I didn't respond, and I haven't heard a thing since last November. And then the first night that I was on your show, it was like 2 weeks ago, and I talked a lot. I talked like for an hour straight about him. The next day, I got a phone call from him. Of course, I didn't answer it, and I thought, how weird. And I felt like maybe that because I was directing energy his way, because I never talk about him or anything like that, that maybe he picked up on that, and that's why he called me.
That's very likely. Typically, when I do what I call cord cutting exercises, meaning the energetic cords, the filaments of light, the connections that you make with other people, which happens when you're in a relationship, and it happens even more when you're in a sexual relationship with someone. I always cut those cords. It never fails. As soon as I cut that cord, they pop up. You know, like somehow energetically they sense that. And that's quite likely what happened. Maybe you processed something that night, because I remember that night and you had some realizations about things. And, you know, it's quite possible that you
talked the whole time, and it was for like an hour straight all about him. Right. So I set a lot of energy his way, not wanting to. I wanted to talk to you, not to him. But I think he picked up on it.
It's very possible. you know, and it's unbelievable how, especially when you cut it off, like you have some realization, you process something, and it's like, it's almost like a release of something. They pop right back up on the radar, like, whoa. And maybe like they have no idea. Something else triggered him to do it, or he just decided spontaneously to do it. I think subconsciously at some level, you know, people do tune into that, and that's probably what happened.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, I mean, he would probably is going to call every 6 months or so anyway, because he knows if he can engage me in conversation, he could say something, get me in a good mood, talking, and then, well, let's get together, you know, and go from there. It's never going to happen. It used to happen all the time. It's never going to happen again. But he, I'm sure, doesn't think that.
Right. He probably thinks it's going to be like it was before, where
Yeah.
every 6 months you would finally give in. But it sounds like you have a much clearer vision, and you didn't answer the contact, which is great.
Oh, never. I will never do that. Even if I get an unknown call or a blocked number or something like that, no, don't answer.
Good.
I don't answer.
Good. Because, you know, if it's something important, someone will leave a message with a phone number. You can
Exactly.
call back. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Um, there was something else. It's two more comments I want to make, and they're both about energy. Um, you know, I'm terrible with plants, right? And I never buy them. I just don't deal with plants. And about 5 years ago, a friend of mine wanted to give me a plant. I said, no, I don't want it. I don't have a green thumb. It'll die, you know, in a month. And she said, no, you can't kill this plant. I'm like, all right, I'll take it, you know. And I didn't expect it to live. And I didn't do any, I maybe gave it some food and I watered it, just what I thought you do to a plant, like I do with every other plant I've ever had, and they always die. But this one lived. And I had it for like 5 years, right? And it was beautiful, and just all I did really was just water it. Well, he was in my house so much, and right towards the end, when it was about to be over, I remember I was like, oh my God, I can't believe my plant is dying, you know, and because it was just falling over and it looked terrible, and I would try to give it extra water, nothing was helping, and I'm like, wow, my plant's dying, that I had had for like 5 years. And when he left for the final time, he was gone. Within 2 weeks, the plant started to pick itself back up.
Right.
And yeah, and I started, you know, really taking care of it. And now, I mean, you know, within a month, it was back standing up again, and it's healthier than ever now. It's doing great. But that's what it was. I mean, he brought so much negative, bad energy into my house. It almost killed my plant.
But
Do you
how
believe
amazing
that?
that, I totally believe it. And how amazing that the plant revived, you know, after
Yeah,
all that was
well, if he would have stayed, it would not have. It just couldn't take it anymore. I mean,
right.
imagine how my poor plant couldn't take it, and you know, if nothing was really directed towards the plant, it was imagine what I went through. But I'm saying, you know, all that negative energy killed my plant, almost killed my plant.
I totally believe in that. In fact, just like a week ago, my friend was telling me the story. He has a very toxic wife, and she came over. They don't live together, but she came over and moved an orchid in his house. And within days, the orchid dropped all the flowers. Like, it just died. And he didn't throw it away. And they just resolved something, made some big push toward, you know, resolving the situation, and all of a sudden the orchid sprouted some new flowers. So
Wow.
I totally believe in that kind of stuff. I definitely do. Some people say too, like maybe, you know, they buy flowers like they're cut, right, and they just put them in a vase in their house, and then somebody will come over, and you know, usually the flowers will last like a week or something like that before they die. But this person comes into the house, and like overnight the flowers are just like dead, like dropped dead, because they sucked the energy out.
Yeah, or is that what it is? They suck the energy out. I thought he was just putting that energy, and it was just I didn't know. But yeah,
I'm
you're
sure
right
it's
about that.
something like that, because that's life force energy, right? And so it survives on life force energy. So either if somebody comes in and sucks the life force energy out, or they come in and they just bring so much negative energy that it pushes, you know, the positive energy out. Something of this nature, you know, that the plants are responding to.
Yeah. there was one more thing I wanted to say. This is something I actually learned today. Well, I mean, I heard it today. I don't know if it's true, but it's that it says people that vibrate at the same frequency vibrate towards each other. It's called sympathetic vibrations. And I remember when I met this guy, you know, I wasn't mad or upset or anything like that, but I had just got back from a trip, a 2-week trip. It took me 10 hours to get home. I didn't have very much rest at all. I went out the next night to a dinner. I had to go to a dinner with a bunch of people. And, you know, when I got out, I was really tired. My energy was really low. All I wanted to do was just go home. You know, I wasn't upset or anything like that. It's just my energy wasn't right. You know what I mean? So maybe people, like, you know, it seems that always good people attract these narcissists or whatever, but maybe they attract them when, you know, they're having an off day or something like that. You know, because if your energy is high and you're yourself, maybe you wouldn't attract it. I'm not trying to blame people, you know, for what they attract or whatever, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? Because right. I remember the night that we met, I was not myself at all. I wasn't feeling well. So
I definitely agree. I think that if I look back, honestly, I can say that there was something in me that felt insignificant, unheard, you know, unimportant to anyone. And so what did I do but attract someone who treated me that way? You know?
Yeah. Now, yes, that's one thing, but what I'm talking about is something different. It's not like what I understand what you're saying, how you feel about yourself, your whatever, what you think you deserve or something like that. But I'm just saying that, let's say, you know, you're usually, like, you're okay, you know, with yourself. Like you're just having an off day or a bad day or something, and you would attract someone just because of that.
Yeah, you could be open
Now,
and weak, right? Like if your energy.
Thank you. That's what I mean. Yeah, but you're right about what you're saying now. If I wasn't what you're about to say, those things, then I wouldn't have kept him around as long as I did. You know.
Right.
I mean, I may have attracted him and met him, but then immediately when I saw the first red flag, I would have been, no, you're out of here. But I kept him around for a long time. So yeah, I was feeling those things, you know, maybe like I deserve that, or I don't know, whatever.
Or this is just how it is. Like if you grew up like that, you know, if that was all you ever knew, it seemed normal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And like what you were saying, I just came on, but I caught excuse me, I'm sorry, the last half of what you were saying about how, I think you were talking about alcoholics, how they, you know, couldn't have anything real or whatever like that. But he used to always say, you know, I can't stand you have this unbelief in me. I can't stand it. I want you to have faith in me. Have hope. You know, he used to actually say those words.
Right.
Because it got to the point where, you know, of course his actions didn't match his words. And I didn't believe anything he said anymore. And this unbelief you have in me is horrible.
Right.
And like, I mean, but is he that stupid, or really he's just trying to manipulate me? Because why would I have any belief in him when he let me down so many times?
Right, because he was probably trying to get you to feel bad for not believing in him. Because if when you met him, if you were a person with a lot of faith and you believed in people and you gave people the benefit of the doubt, and of course, you know, he did things to undermine that, like you said, why would I believe in him, right? But he expected you to keep going on like you were at the beginning. You know, when he
exactly, that's what it was. Over time, he had let me down so many times. No, I didn't have any belief left in him. And he used to say, they call it this unbelief that I had in him. And you have no faith and have hope. And I, you know, of course, I've learned since then, but they want you to have hope, to hold on to hope. And he would even say, you know, I'm going to change. He would burst out in, you know, like this rages of just anger. And I told him, I can't take that. I really can't take it. It tears my nerves up. And what I would do is I would go in my room, and he would follow me in my room. I said, "You got to get out." I said, "You're tearing on my nerves. I really can't take it. I can't take your anger." And like one day, and I just took it. Sometimes I would fight back, but then, you know, fights with a narcissist, there are those endless circles, and then things start, they don't make sense, and you don't even know what you're fighting about anymore. And so I got where I didn't even fight. But then there was this one day, and I was sitting by myself at the table eating dinner. I fixed myself a nice salad or something. I put a lot of work into it, and I was eating it, enjoying it, and I was reading a book at the same time, a Louise Hay book. So I was feeling kind of good. And he walked in and immediately started with, these accusations and just crap, and started getting louder and louder and louder. And finally I got up and I just threw my plate up against the wall, and the food went everywhere. And I just ran off to my room and I just cried. And then he came in, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and all this stuff, because I never reacted that way before. And I actually thought he was sorry, but now I think, no, that was probably exactly what he wanted. He probably loved that.
Mm-hmm. And then he loved the fact that he could renew your hope in him by saying he was sorry, so he could manipulate your faith.
Well, that's what he said, for the first time, "I'm going to change. I promise you I'm going to change." And then like a couple of days went by, and like no rages or anything. And he would smile. He'd say, "Can't you see the change in me? Can't you see I'm changing?" I said, "Yeah, you're doing really good." And even I'm so stupid. Like I even really did have some hope that maybe he really is changing, but that's,
Yeah,
didn't happen.
they know, like they count on the fact that hope dies last, right? That especially if they select a victim, and they always pre-screen, right? A victim who is optimistic, who is patient and tolerant and believes in the good of people. Like, of course, that's the kind of victim they want to select, because then they can continue doing it, and they know that the person's going to forgive them. They're going to keep having hope. They're going to believe them. They're going to be tolerant of all this behavior. But then, when you get to the point where you're like, no, it's gone. They're not counting on that. That's why he was telling you, like, your disbelief in him, it was really bothering him. Yeah, because he was counting on your hope. It's the only way he could, stay around there, was if you keep believing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just, that's what they want, is that hope. You did good to drop the hope, right? There was nothing wrong with you dropping that hope.
Drop the hope. I thought you said drop the plate. I threw the plate up against the wall, and there's just food went everywhere, and I just ran off crying. The screaming and being so angry. And he would always say, "You push my buttons. You push my buttons." I don't even know what his buttons were. I'm sitting there peacefully reading a book, or as peaceful as I could be. He was gone, so I felt I had a few minutes of peace, and quietly, peacefully reading a book and eating my dinner. And he comes in and just changes the whole atmosphere of the room into something, just where you just didn't want to be.
Right. Especially because you were having this lovely moment and you were feeling good. They love to destroy that.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And his, down on one knee, "I'm so sorry, I'm going to change," but now I know that he, I did exactly what he wanted. He loved it, and probably wanted me to do more of it, but I'm too old for that. He's throwing plates up against the wall and stuff like that, but it was just such a spontaneous thing,
Right, because in that moment you lost it, right? Because they'll push and provoke you until you lose it, and they love that, because any attention, whether it's positive or negative, even if you're really angry and you're throwing a plate at the wall, what does that mean to him? It means he must matter. If you get that upset, someone made a comment here. I was also told that I was negative. How on the earth can a person be positive around those cheating pathological liars? Yeah, they drive us crazy. Yeah. Yeah, they love to play that. This is the part where I call it like spiritual abuse. They hone in whether you have religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, that don't have anything to do with a particular religious dogma, but maybe your spiritual beliefs are to be kind to one another, to forgive, to be optimistic, to have faith, right? And they know this is a big part of like your spiritual identity and who you are. And so when they see you losing faith, when they see you getting upset, when they see you setting boundaries and no longer being tolerant of the abuse, that's when they flip it on you and tell you that you're a bad person because you don't have those spiritual beliefs. Because the person who really was tolerant, they would just put up with it. They would forgive, they would go on, and, you know, that sort of thing. And that's where the spiritual abuse comes in. And that's really tricky, you know, because it's like, it's who you are, right? It's like how you identify yourself. And you're like, well, I don't want to be a negative person. I'm not a negative person. Or I don't want to be an angry person. I'm not a really angry person throwing stuff at the wall, right? But because they push you to that point through the abuse.
That is so true. That I read my first, let's say, spiritual book when I was 18 years old. It was Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking. It's not my favorite book in the world, but it was the first one I ever picked up and read. And from then on, since I'm 48 now, since I was 18 years old, I've been reading these books, these spiritual books, working on myself, you know, to not be a negative person, to be, you know, all these, you know, good spiritual things, you know. And the last thing I would call myself is negative. I feel, you know, in any situation, I try to be positive. And then there was one time, and I don't go around saying that, and I never said that to him, but he put his head down one time. I just was so, acted like he was so flustered with me. He said, "You're such a negative person." And I just wanted to die, because that's so not who I am. And I mean, it's like he just stabbed me in the heart, because he just attacked who I am. You know, that's not who I am. That's the exact opposite of who I am. You know, how dare you say that? You know, and, oh my gosh, yeah, he did say that. It was the worst thing he could have said to me, because that's exactly what I'm not.
Right. And he knows that because you don't want to be that you're then going to be the opposite. You're going to be the positive person. You're going to try to look at the positive, and then he's right back in it, you know?
Well, I didn't realize that he knew that about me, but maybe not. Maybe he did. And he said that just for the reason you just said.
He must have realized that was important too. They are so skilled at doing that. Like, it's like, sometimes I would think, is he that psychic? Is he that intuitive? Unconsciously, they really can tap into your vulnerabilities, what's most important to you, even if you don't flat out say, it's so important to me to be a positive person. You know, you don't have to say that, because they can guess that from, you know, your behaviors and the way you are. It's uncanny the way they can identify those things and then push you and abuse you through those things.
You know what he was? He was a fake Christian. He would go to church, and I figured out why he wanted to go to church so much. I never went, because I'm not into the religion thing. But guess what's at church?
Public
Single
perception?
women.
Oh.
Single women. That's what he goes there for. And, you know, he pretends, and he would even tell me, you know, because he wore this thing around his neck where you hold your keys on it, and help something else, and it said, "I love Jesus." And I'm like, really? You have to wear that? You have to tell everybody that? He says, "I love Jesus. I'm not ashamed of who knows it." You know, it's just like, oh God, you know, you don't have to wear like a sign, you know. But yes, he did, because he wanted to draw those kind of people to him, because he thinks those people are good people and people he's going to get something from. And a church is a good place where a lot of single women are.
Right. And if they're women who believe in being kind and believe in forgiveness, right? If they actually believe, not like him, but if they actually believe in the faith of that church, then they're going to be his perfect victim, because they're going to do exactly those things. And then he can use the spiritual abuse on them, just like he did on you with the positivity and negativity thing.
Mm-hmm. And he did know some things from the Bible, because he grew up, you know, in a church, so I guess he picked up some things. But he would study the Bible, not because he believed in it, or he was whatever religion says to do, he would do the opposite. But he wanted to be able to quote things and say things like, you know, he was really into this, you know.
Right. Because then there's the public perception of he's the perfect Christian. He's the exemplary Christian.
Yeah. He was just the opposite.
Yeah, that's
But
dangerous.
that's so dumb to me because, like, let's say you do get somebody that way. How long is that going to last? How long can you keep that up? If you really don't believe in that, how long can you pretend to believe in something you don't believe in?
It depends. I mean, they're masters of disguise. Like sometimes they can carry things on for years,
But
because
just the thought about that, that life would make me so sick that I have to
yeah,
pretend to believe in things I don't. That's disgusting.
they're pretending
Anything,
all the
you
time.
know?
They're pretending
Excuse me?
all the time. Everything they do is pretending. The whole
Yeah.
image they have, it's all a pretense. Like none of that's real, So I think it's just like every other lie they tell, every other illusion they create.
Yeah, but now I'm just thinking about it. How miserable that must be. Just imagine the most disgusting food, like from another country or something you couldn't imagine eating, and you had to eat it every day and pretend like you loved it. I mean, really?
Someone wrote here, my ex-narc goes to mass every week also. And it's, look at me, I'm such a good Catholic. They're so warped, they even believe they are great. Yeah, I've heard the religious thing and then also the AA thing. A lot of narcissists go to AA to pick up single women, to pick up vulnerable sick women, and I'm sorry, not sick, single, to pick up vulnerable single women, and then the fact that they'll go there and they'll pretend to be this exemplary figure. Maybe even they're leading the AA thing, or they're giving talks at AA about what an exemplary person they are, and then they tell their little pity story about something in the past to make everybody go, oh, right. And then they talk about how great they are and how they're so humble, though. They're so humble, just like the humble Christian pretenser, the one who's pretending to be a Christian, he's acting very humble about things. Or maybe in some other spiritual sect, I've met tons of these in other spiritual realms where they act so humble, humble of the spiritual teachings and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a big facade. It's not what's happening behind that. That's really dangerous.
Yeah. I I I mean, I wasn't raised in a church, so the church is not something for me. But I was thinking about going to some like metaphysical groups and stuff like that. Like if I met someone there, I kind of feel like that's something you can't really fake. Like spiritual truth. I mean, it's it is a faith in God, but it's there's like science and energy and stuff involved too. It's,
Oh, be
you know,
careful.
I mean,
Don't
can you fake
don't
that?
assume that you won't find narcs there, because you will. I have met so many spiritual teachers, gurus, and everybody's in love with them. They worship them. They worship their teachings. But you know what? I lived with two of them and I saw how they really are. And they abused me. And I was like, wow, right? Because the public perception they're putting out there, and even people who are working like with the psychedelic medicine plants, and like these plants, like especially ayahuasca, like if you drink that, usually it's like very tough love. Like it forces you to see the things in your life you have to change. And I kept thinking, how are they drinking that? How are they working with this plant and acting like this and treating people like this and not experiencing backlash there? Like how is that even happening? And somehow it's happening. And I don't know how that's happening, but the spiritual realms, and like especially the people who gravitate towards positions of power, but even just people who just claim to be humble students of the lineage, be careful, because there are plenty of narcs hiding in those circumstances. And then they'll use that spiritual abuse against their victims. Well, if you practiced this, then you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't doubt me if you really have faith. Like whatever it is that they abuse, they can come up with all kinds of stuff. So still be cautious. I'm not saying don't go there. I'm not saying, don't participate in that kind of stuff. Just don't go in there blindly thinking that anybody who follows those sorts of traditions must be a good person, because that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I was thinking that might be a safe place, but well,
Some,
now that you warned me, then yeah, I'll keep in mind that. But
someone wrote here.
I've learned so. Oh, I'm sorry. I've learned so much about narcissists and everything that I really, I mean, I haven't had a chance to test it out, but I really feel like, when the first red flag comes up, I could see it. I think.
Eject button. Hit the
What?
eject button. Like,
Yes.
you're
Get out of here.
saying, right. Yeah, no, first red flag, you're out. You don't have to wait around, and the thing is, like, if anybody wants to tell you that they deserve the benefit of the doubt or second chance, or how do you know that you're right? What if you're wrong and you're misjudging them? You know what the answer to that is? You know what the great thing about giving myself validation is, that I don't have to have those thoughts anymore. I believe in myself. I trust myself first. I don't have to second guess myself. I don't have to second guess my own intuition for what you're telling me. And you just go with that, and you just trust yourself. Like, as soon as you see that flag, you're out. Like, the first sense of it, and you're probably going to sense it a lot better now, going into that spiritual area, you'll hear it because people probably talk, and you'll probably like, oh, that's what that sounds like in this language, because it's a different language people are speaking than the Christian language, right? But then you'll hear it's the same pattern, different language.
Yeah, well, I've been studying metaphysics for many years, so you can't really, I mean, you might tell me something new that I don't know, but I kind of think I know truth when I hear it. But like in relationships, no, I'm not great at relationships. I do believe, like, I'll see something with my own eyes, and you can tell me that's not true, but I want to have faith in you, so I'll believe it. Relationships I'm not good at, but the metaphysical thing I've been studying for a long time, so I'm kind of good at that.
I think it's more about the self-trust. It's not exactly the relationship factor, but the self-trust, because perhaps when you get into a relationship, you start to doubt yourself and believe the other person more than you. And that's the part that you want to be really clear with moving forward. You're not bad at relationships. You just lacked the self-trust because you were taught that in the past, right? So now moving forward, now that you've seen what you've seen, now that you're aware of what you're aware, now you got to trust yourself. Like, when you get that feeling that that's a red flag, you don't have to listen to any of the rationalizations. You might be wrong, and that's okay, but you don't have to listen to any of that. You don't have to entertain any of that. You don't have to give a second, chance to any of that, a benefit of the doubt. You don't have to do that. You don't owe anybody any of that. As soon as you get that feeling, you owe it to yourself to trust that. And it's really just about rebuilding that sense of self-trust and recognizing that, because remember, they're not going to tell you the truth. Like, especially if they're covert, they're going to love the fact that they're just going to keep lying and lying, right? So don't count on the other person to tell you the truth and to reveal them. Count on yourself to notice it when you see it, because you are better at that now. You're at a whole different place now than you were 7 months ago, than you were 6 months before that when he, hoovered the first time, or, before that when he hoovered. You're at a different place now. You're recognizing a lot more. And you're also having a lot more trust in yourself.
Right, but it's still scary because it's tricky because nobody's perfect.
Right.
People are going to screw up, and how do you know? It's like the first time somebody lets you down. You can't just flip out. Oh, now you're done. You know what I mean? Like I got to learn the difference between a person that's being real and these narcissists, and sociopaths, and psychopaths, and all that.
Right.
And psychopaths, they're much different than a narcissist in that they're actually, I think they're more dangerous, but they're much more. Hello, are you there?
I'm listening.
Okay, I'm sorry, I lost you on the thing, but anyway, they're much more controlled. Like narcissists, they rage, they're out of control, and this and that. But I don't think psychopaths don't really do that. They're very calm, very cool.
Usually,
you know what I mean?
Usually, they're very calm and cool. Yeah. The thing is, like, okay, people do make mistakes, right? And somebody makes a mistake, and then you talk about it, and then they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was doing. I really messed up. I'm not going to do that again. If they do it again, then you know who they are, right? But let's go back to the initial meetings with people. Like, you're walking down the hallway of your apartment complex and someone starts talking to you and they say something and you're like, it doesn't smell good. I don't like that. And you don't owe them anything. Like, you don't have to give them the benefit of the doubt of that. Like, now I just trust that feeling. Like, what I hear it as is underhanded criticism. You know, I'm walking down the hallway and somebody says something and I hear there's underhanded criticism in there immediately. And I'm like, okay, this guy is trying to put me down and make me feel down, but he's not saying it overtly. This is the kind of person who, you know, if this is the very first thing he's saying to me, he's leading with this. I can only imagine what I would get into if I would follow that rabbit hole any further. Therefore, no, thank you. You know, and maybe you're wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I make a bad guess and I don't get to know somebody, but probably not. You know, by this point, probably if I'm hearing that in his speech, it's because, and I'm listening to my intuition, I'm trusting my intuition. I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like where that's going. This is what he's leading with now. I can only imagine what's going to come later. But when you're in a relationship with someone, you know, and things are working and, you know, whatever, and people mess up, you mess up, he messes up, whatever, but you make it right and then you don't do it again. But somebody who does that 2 times, 3 times, you know who they are. You know very well who they are. No matter what they say, right? Their actions are revealing who they are. And you have to believe that. Like, you have to trust yourself enough and believe in yourself enough to go, I don't know you anything more than that, you know, and it's okay. You can walk away from that. And the thing is that because of these spiritual beliefs, the person is going to try to twist that, you know, well, you're just being negative. Well, you don't, you know, how to forgive. You're not tolerant. You know, they might say all kinds of things, but remember, you got to validate yourself first and foremost. You know who you are. You know you're a tolerant person. You know you're a forgiving person. You know you're a positive person. But somebody keeps repeating behavior, they're telling you exactly who they are. You don't have to owe them your positivity after that point, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to be aware of that now. And also what I was saying earlier about what I just figured out today is about the initial meeting with people is, I mean, you have to do what you got to do no matter how you feel sometimes, but I'm going to pay attention to how I feel. If I'm not feeling right or feeling off or something, you know, I'm going to pay attention to you know, if somebody happens to come up to me at that time, maybe that's, you know, that's not good.
You're totally right. Pay attention to how you feel. Because if you're talking to someone and you get that icky feeling, and it feels icky, it's undescribable. It just feels icky. If you get that feeling, something's not right. If you get suddenly exhausted, like you're talking to someone and you just feel so exhausted, something's not right. If you're talking to someone and, you know, you weren't exhausted until that point and your eyes are like going like this when you're talking with them, something's not right. That's probably an energy vampire. You know, so recognizing how your body and your intuition speaks to you is really, really key, because as long as you're in touch with those feelings, you don't have to give, you know, the benefit of the doubt beyond that point. Like, if your intuition is saying something, you got to believe yourself first. You got to trust yourself first. That is your inner alarm, your inner barometer telling you something's not right. And you don't have to investigate and figure out exactly what it is, because remember, with narcissists, it's very, very, very difficult to get the proof. And even when you got the proof, they usually still deny it, you know? So it doesn't go a good direction when you ignore the intuition. Always trust yourself and know yourself to know what those signs are. You know, like maybe for you, you get some like weird feeling in your stomach and you feel nauseated, or maybe like your stomach drops, or you feel like you're on a roller coaster kind of thing, or maybe you just get that icky feeling. But whatever that is for you, that's what you got to listen to.
Yeah, but I can remember when we sat down to talk the very first time, and he was so nice, and his voice was so smooth and calming, and he sat back. He kind of leaned back and put his, you know, like a man would sit, like put
like
his foot up on his knee.
Oh, okay.
I can't see you. I can't see. But anyway, like real calm and cool and just smiling and talking. He only ever did that first day I met. All the whole time I knew, he never sat that way ever again. So he was, and he even had like his arms kind of open, you know, like this really open posture, like he knew what he was doing, you know. And I, you know, I did feel like, you know, he was open to me and I was open to him, but he never sat that way again, ever again, in the whole time I ever knew him.
Right.
So he was acting, but I'm glad that I learned all the things that I learned, because I would have loved to, even right now, I would love to call him and just spew out and curse him out for hours and tell him all the things that I know he did and what he did to me. But you know, they don't care if it's good attention or bad attention. They love it. So I know I can never do that.
Right. Yeah, that it never goes well. Like, you're better to write a letter that you never mail or never send, right? But write it in a letter or talk it out in the mirror as if you were having that conversation with him, or even like make a selfie video, you know, if you really want, whatever, but just don't contact him. Don't tell him about that. Don't bring that to him. It just won't go good. Maybe there's something in you that you really need to get out, and that's fine. Write it on paper, say it out loud. Just don't give that to him.
Well, I know he would either deny it, twist it around to be something else, or just, you know, or say he's sorry. He might say he's sorry, but he's not. You know, it wouldn't go anywhere. Nothing would come from it. You know.
No, and it could leave you much, much more confused. You know, because imagine,
or mad.
Yeah, that too. But like, imagine he takes the posture of, I'm so sorry. I've been working so hard on myself these last 7 months. You wouldn't believe it. I'm a whole different person now. You know what I mean? And then like that gets confusing. So that's why it's dangerous either way, whether he comes at with a positive or he comes at that with a negative. Either way, that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Well, whatever it is, I know it's some form of manipulation. I know that now.
Someone wrote here, she was adding that her ex is very calm too. It's eerie. We suspect that he was likely a sociopath. We were talking about the calmness that psychopaths and sociopaths have. And then she also added that she used to get the childish, innocent voice, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. Yeah, so they put on that very innocent kind of thing, right, where it sounds so good, and that's why it gets really confusing. And that's why you got to trust yourself, like, first and foremost, and learn that it's okay to say no to people even when you don't have proof that something's wrong, because you don't have to have that. You don't owe anybody any of that. Like, you owe yourself first and foremost your loyalty. And if your intuition is like, this isn't good, if you take action against that, you are acting out of integrity with yourself. And the most important thing is that you act in integrity with yourself, you know? So if your intuition gives you that feeling, you trust it, and don't let anybody guilt trip you into taking a different action, you know, or into doubting yourself. You don't even owe them an explanation. And that's why you don't want to explain, because if you start to explain to a narcissist, what do? Rationalization. They come up with all kinds of excuses and rationalizations, and it sounds very plausible, but it's just a bunch of crap.
Yeah, well, when you've had so many examples of it, you know. But you know what confuses me about a psychopath? Like, I watched a lot of videos about Ted Bundy, and one of the police officers or detectives or whatever that found one of the bodies, you know, he was so calm and cool to these girls when he would pretend like he was hurt, and then, please help me to my car, and then they get in the car, and then he would handcuff them and then take them to wherever, and then kill, not just, but torture them, do all the stuff to them, and kill them. But the police officer said, you know, with some of the girls that they did find, when they found them fairly quickly after, you know, and he said it looks like sharks at like a feeding frenzy. But he left so much carnage behind. You know what I mean? Like, they're so calm and cool, but he's got so much anger and rage inside of him. But not everybody is Ted Bundy or a serial killer. So for like a psychopath, there is a psychopath. When does their rage come out? If they don't actually kill you.
Usually it's when you call them out. It's when you say, I know who you are. I know what you're doing.
Is that what makes them a psychopath? That they are very calm and cool for a long time, but then when you call them out, they lose it and go crazy?
That's typically what they describe as the narcissistic rage. You know, the narcissistic injury is the narcissistic rage comes out when you call them out for what they're doing or who they are. They can totally lose it at that point, like when they totally know it. But the psychopath and the sociopath, like you mentioned, and like this other person mentioned, put on that air of so calm and cool, you know, and they control that.
Yeah, no, you know, like I learned a lot from that, because Ted Bundy, he would have crutches and pretend like he was hurt and be carrying something. Please help me carry this to my car. I will never help anybody carry something to their car ever, you know, just from watching those videos.
Yeah, that's the thing, because
and that would be the thing that I would do. Oh, sure, I'll help you, you know.
Right. Yeah, that's why you got to be careful, because these people are out there. I just saw this movie called Gone Girl. Apparently everybody's been talking about this. It's an older movie. I didn't even know. Wow. I recommend watching that if you want to see a psychopath in action. The main character, I don't remember her name. She was also in another movie I saw a couple months ago. Very similar sort of persona. And then the plot takes like a drastic twist. Like it wasn't what I expected. And then it was like, wow. But you'll notice the calmness, like how calm.
What's the name of it again?
Gone Girl is the one I just saw. I need to look up the other one. It was on Netflix. It was about this woman who got raped, and then she's writing letters to the guy in jail. And at first it looks like she's in the Stockholm syndrome. And I'm like, oh my God, why is she writing these letters? Oh my God, this is horrible. And then it takes a different twist, and it's like, whoa. Yeah, this person said, yeah, Ben Affleck is in Gone Girl. And the same female character is in this other movie that I was talking about. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me later, but it was on Netflix too. But apparently if you look up Gone Girl, and the main character, the main woman in there, and then what other movie she's in, it'll come up. Gosh, why can't I?
You don't know her name?
I can't. I could find out though right now. Let's see. Gone Girl. Rosamund Pike.
Who?
Rosamund Pike is her name.
I don't.
I'm going to look up what other movies she's in. It'll tell me here. Yeah, she's the most famous for Gone Girl. And what is the other? Return to Sender. Of course. Why did I forget that? Return to Sender is the other movie that I saw on Netflix, which is like, wow. Because it's like, yeah, like this person's writing here in the Ben Affleck movie in Gone Girl, you know, at first you're like, oh, he's obviously the narcissist, but then it's like, whoa, right? And I don't want to give it away, but a similar twist happens in that other movie in Return to Sender, where it appears that she's the victim. But definitely watch that. This character, I mean, she must have really studied. Somebody must have coached her. She does a really, really good job. And I think that's the eerie part, is like just how calm, you know, just how calm they can hold it down. Even when it's so emotional, when you're fighting, and like the stakes are huge, like the emotional thing, it's so huge, but they're just so calm. That's really, really creepy.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. I'm not saying this just because, but for the question, just because somebody is a rapist, that doesn't make them a sociopath or a psychopath, does it?
Well, you know, they define sociopath and psychopath differently in different books and stuff, but it's quite possible. I mean, I don't see how they couldn't be, you know, because taking actions like that means that, one, this person is not following the societal rules. Societal rules are like, you don't do that to someone else, right? So if they're raping people, you know, like especially if it wasn't just one occurrence, like if this is a serial thing that keeps happening, yeah, quite likely that's a psychopath or sociopath. where the psychopath, it's more of like the one-on-one, some people define it, and the sociopath more like the person has like, they're against the societal ways of things. And it can get so complicated trying to figure out exactly what a person is, right? The fact is that that's a very, very toxic person. Somebody who's raping people, like, especially over and over again, there's something really wrong with them. Like that's a character disturbance. Like they're not at all following the same rules of society that the rest of us are following,
Right.
and obviously no regret. There's no empathy. There's no remorse. Like, okay, like sometimes people screw up one time, something horrible happened, maybe they regretted doing it, but they wouldn't do it again if they actually regretted it. If they had remorse, if they had empathy and they were actually really sorry, they wouldn't do it again. So if they're doing it again and again, it's because that's who they are. They're extremely disturbed and they believe they should just keep doing that and getting away with it. Someone wrote here.
But not, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Someone wrote here, Putlockers is a free movie channel. And then she also said, well, they are without a conscience. And yeah, that's what these, the psychopaths, sociopaths, no conscience. Like they know right and wrong, but doing wrong doesn't weigh on their conscience like it would to you or I, right? Because that's who they are.
Yeah, like there's something different about a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath, because like there's a lot of guys that they're just a jerk. You know what I mean? Okay, you have a boyfriend, he turned out to be a jerk, and you break up, but you don't get sick and disgusted when you think about him. He was a jerk. But these narcissists, they disgust you and just make you sick. I mean, long after it's over, you can't think about him.
Yeah, because it's a whole other level of manipulation and conniving. And this book, In Sheep's Clothing, I don't know if you've heard of this. Oh, you can't see the screen. That's right. In Sheep's Clothing by Dr. George Simon. He talks about character disturbances. And these aren't necessarily narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths. They could just be manipulative people. And how people use manipulation to win against others, and in each person taking that to different levels, and there might be people that don't fulfill all the requirements of a narcissist or a sociopath or a psychopath, but they're obviously manipulative by the way that they treat people, and they're still very toxic. Like you still don't want to be around those people, but like you said, like, maybe there's that one jerk at work and like, he's always eating somebody's sandwich in the refrigerator or something. This is a jerk. He's eating somebody's lunch. But, is it the kind of thing that like years later you're like tormenting about? Probably not. That's a whole different level. Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes though, like people just don't know that there is such a thing as narcissism, psychopathy, whatever, or they just think that, psychopaths are only like the Ted Bundy kind of character. Like I rarely go out, but it never fails that every time I go out, I talk to somebody who ends up telling me that their ex was a sociopath or a narcissist, or they're right in the middle of divorcing. And this one lady said, oh, I'm divorcing this guy. He's just a real asshole. And I was like, is he an asshole or is he a narcissist? And she goes, exactly. She's like, I'm just finding out about narcissism and I found it online and I really think he might be a narcissist. And then we talk and it's like, yeah, this guy really sounds like a narcissist. So I think a lot of times people just write them off as jerks or assholes when there could be something much bigger there,
Yeah, but, I mean, I was raised by narcissists. I believe my stepfather was an actual psychopath. I believe that because he was horrible. But, I didn't even know about this narcissist thing until, just, what it was, maybe, 7 months ago, whatever, when I started, looking this stuff up. And, because the word has been thrown around so much, it's like a woman that spends too much time in the mirror,
right,
or a guy that's arrogant or something. It's like, it's not that serious. That's what people think of when they think of narcissists. People that haven't been through it, the term has just been thrown around too much where people, to me, just don't take it seriously. It's a horrible thing.
I absolutely agree. I was reading some articles too where their mainstream media likes to focus on narcissism as a social trend having to do with selfies and social media and self-promotion and people looking in the mirror and that sort of thing. And I'm like, but you're missing the whole point here. And like
Oh,
that.
it's so much more than that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't even think that has anything to do with it. Because I
Right.
spend a lot of time in the mirror in the morning, and I don't think I'm a narcissist. You know,
Totally.
I'm not out to destroy people and hurt people. And when I wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, plan, what am I going to do to this person? Or this person's so happy, how can I destroy that? Never, never.
I totally agree. I honestly think that those articles or the people who are commissioning the articles, or not commissioning, but whatever you call it, the editors and whatever, they could be narcissists, and they could be, you know, putting out this information to confuse people and distract people from the real issues of what is narcissistic abuse. And it's not staring in the mirror and taking selfies. Like, you're not hurting anybody if you're taking a bunch of selfies and posting them all over the media and, you know, blowing up Instagram or spending a lot of time putting on makeup. You're not hurting anybody. It's a whole different thing. And I think
it's about the damage that they do.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's a disservice, you know, to what actually it is, and to the abuse, and why
The
it's
people that go through it.
exactly. Someone wrote here too, have you read Psychopath Free?
Yeah, I have. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know, like the Facebook page and their website too. I think she wanted to suggest that to you.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't go on the I don't do Facebook, but I didn't go on their website at all.
How did you find me, if not through Facebook?
YouTube.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Okay, perfect.
Oh, you know what I want to say too? Okay, well, I saw one of your videos and I commented on it, and you commented right back. And so I watched some of your other videos, and I noticed that when people make a comment, then you comment and say something back. Well, you made this one video, and I don't even remember which one it was. And this man, and it was a man because I saw his name, he wrote, "My God, you're beautiful." And she didn't even comment.
I know.
I know, that was really funny.
I don't know what to say to that. Thanks. I guess I could have said thank you. I wasn't trying to encourage, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's the kind of like creepy guy you want to stay away from. You're talking about this serious thing, and he's coming up with, "My God, you're beautiful."
Maybe he wasn't creepy. Maybe it was just like an inappropriate kind of comment or whatever.
But you were talking about something serious, you know, for women, right. or I guess men too, but I think this is more focused on women. And you were talking about a serious thing, and all he could come up with was, "Oh my God, you're beautiful."
Which is why I didn't respond to that.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was great.
I try to respond as much as I can. Sometimes I just don't get the notifications and comments slip through that I don't see, or sometimes I just don't want to go there for whatever reason. But I do try to comment as much as possible, you know, just at least thank people for, you know, putting something out there, for contributing something, for sharing some part of their story even.
Yeah, that's nice to do. You know, Sam Bagman, I watch all his videos, and he is a self-proclaimed diagnosed narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, all of it. He's all of it. But he's putting out all this accurate information, but he's doing it because he has an IQ of 185, and he says it why he does it, because, you know, he wants everybody to show everybody how smart he is, and, you know, it's feeding his ego. That's why he's doing it. But he doesn't usually answer anything.
He does have good information, though. Yes, this other person said
because he is one. So who would know better than him?
And really, I think.
But he's not. I don't think he's doing it really because he wants to help anybody. He just wants to show everybody how smart he is and say, "Oh, you're so wonderful. You're helping me so much." That's feeding his ego, and he says that.
Right. Yeah, he does. At the same time, I'm also still grateful for the information he puts out there, because he does really have great information. I did learn a lot from his videos. And as far as I know, he's the only narcissist who's owning it and putting it out there, you know, and in a way that's, you know, not like, "Oh, I'm a narcissist and it's just awesome to be a narcissist." Like, he's actually educating people about it. It's kind of a bizarre, what's the word?
Well, he's making money off it too. He wrote a book, And I actually went, because everybody kept saying in the comments that had got his book. That book was written in 1998, and they were saying that book is the Bible of narcissism or whatever. So I went to go get it, and they said that book is listed as a textbook, and you have to get it online.
Wild. It's not cheap either, if I remember. It looks like it's quite big. I don't own the book. I didn't get the book. But he is quite educated. I mean, I don't doubt that he is, also innately very intelligent. He's also quite educated, and
he went to college when he was 9.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what part of what made him a narcissist, because of the way his family treated him. Wow. They didn't treat him good. The part of it was wanting to show him off. Another part was jealousy. Another part, he suffered physical abuse. So a lot of trauma growing up, and he says that's what made him that way.
I didn't know anything about his childhood. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, he went to college. He got into college when he was 9 in Budapest or wherever that is. I don't know where that is.
Is that Hungary or Romania? I always get confused between Budapest and Bucharest.
Yeah, he's fluent in 6 languages.
Yeah. I mean, he really does have good information. Like, I've listened to a lot of his videos. I've gotten a lot out, because what he's doing is providing a perspective that no one else is providing. Like, there's a lot of survivors, talking about the story on the other side of the table. And here he is talking about what it's like to be a narcissist, and how a narcissist thinks, and why they do what they do. And that's fascinating, I think, to hear that perspective. I think
he kind of makes it complete. Like, I like both sides. I like to hear the survivors talking, because I relate, but I also like to hear from him, because he is one.
Because you want to know, like, what motivates them, like, why do they do what they do? And he explains it very well.
He does explain it, but you know what though? There's a girl, and she trolls these narcissist pages, and she wrote something really inappropriate and disgusting on one, and I didn't know that she was a narcissist, and I just usually wouldn't even say anything, but I had to say something, so I wrote something back, and she wrote something back to me, and admitted that she was a narcissist too. So, but she said she liked him, because she says, I like this guy. He makes us sound not so bad. But he is giving accurate information, but he's doing it in a scientific way. It kind of sanitizes it, where, I mean, that's what it is, but it makes it, it's like a kind of like a science thing, whatever. Whereas the survivors are talking about the emotional and the pain and the heart, all that.
Exactly.
And I heard him, he was doing an interview with this guy, like one of these hour-long interviews or something. And the guy says to him, so, you admit you're a psychopath, a narcissist, a sociopath. So, but you're married. Do you abuse your wife? And he says, of course I abuse my wife.
Right.
She said, but she grew up. She grew up around narcissists, in a narcissistic family. He said, so she knows what to do. And I saw his movie, or his documentary, called I, Psychopath, which was okay. But anyway, she was in it, and she's very beautiful, and she's from Israel or somewhere. But she said he is the best person that she's ever known. And he says that he loves her as much as he can love. He can't really love, but as much as he can love, he loves her.
Yeah, I saw that movie. I saw her too. I was fascinated to hear her story. I was really excited that they kind of interviewed her a little bit and let her talk about it. Because I would
like to hear more from her, actually.
Yeah, totally. You want to understand, like why do you stay? Why do you enable it? And yeah, that is really wild. Someone says here, he's direct, straight to the point. He modifies his behavior. He modifies his behavior with her. Is that what you mean? With his wife? Yes. Yeah, I don't know much more. I'd only seen that movie, I, Psychopath, which had, a couple interviews with her, like when they were testing him, and then there was like, maybe they were sitting at a restaurant or something at another scene. And that was just really fascinating. I would like to see more of that too. I wonder. I would like for her to make a documentary. It's just on her life with him, and what, and what she goes through, because he can't, he admits himself, narcissists are not giving people, so he's not giving to her, and he says he doesn't do sex,
And he even says she's a healthy young woman, but she gets no sex because I don't do sex.
Right. Yeah, I would love to hear her story. I mean, I'm sure she probably wants to protect her privacy and stuff, and maybe that's why she's not out there in the public light. But it would be fascinating to hear from the wife of the only outspoken, self-proclaimed narcissist.
But you know what? She probably doesn't do it too, because that attention, all that attention that he gets, she would be getting, and he wouldn't like that.
So she knows there would be punishment. That's interesting. That's definitely possible.
Because he only does this stuff for the attention. That's it. And the money, of course, the money too.
Right. Someone wrote here, they don't change, but they can modify the behavior. He said that in a video. That's ringing a bell now. It's ringing a bell too. I feel like I remembered hearing him say that, but I need to go back and see that in context again to understand exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, but also at the same time, I've also heard this many times, is that they care more about what strangers think about them than their own family. Like, they'll treat their family like crap, and treat strangers, beautifully. So
right. I mean,
I don't know.
You and I both grew up with narcissists, right? You know what that is, where your family is the only one who sees that face, but everybody else sees this exemplary face, and
yes.
yeah, there could definitely be something like that going on. It is fascinating, though. I am also very grateful that he's out there putting that information out, because it's really, really valuable, I think, to understand more, because he really gets into like the little details about everything too, like the somatic this and the cerebral that, and the benign and the malignant, and like he goes into like all these intricate details. That's what I find fascinating. Yeah.
And that part about where he says that I see it definitely the cerebral in the beginning, but I think even the somatic narcissist, the one that uses his body, uses sex, like they never have sex with you. They're just doing, they're using you to masturbate on, basically. It's like you're just the same, they're not really engaging with you.
Yeah, they withhold sex as a punishment, and then normally they like to masturbate to porn. So it usually has nothing even to do with you, because they can just take care of themselves and not have to please you or have any sort of interaction. They could just go do that, and it's more self-serving.
The cerebral narcissist, like in the beginning, just to hook you, he will have sex with you, but he doesn't. He's just doing it to get in the door or whatever, and eventually he will stop. And the somatic narcissist, he's still not engaging with you. He's not really with you.
And it's like a torment, because if you enter that relationship, and you're a sexual person and you're having sex with this person, and suddenly they stop and they start withholding sex, and then you start feeling like, was something wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why is he staying up late jerking off to porn when I'm right here? Like, you don't understand. It's very traumatizing to the victim.
Yeah, it's insulting too.
Right. Right. Someone says, yes, they're all into porn, big time. Yeah, it's just, it's easy. What's that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
I just wanted your opinion about, I know you can't tell me definitely, but just what is your opinion? Are narcissists born or are they made?
So sometimes people say that, in a small percentage, they're finding some kind of genetic marker. And I think it's more on the psychopathy meter that they're measuring for, like a genetic marker of psychopathy. And they're saying it's a very small percentage. I really believe a lot in the nurture thing, right? Where like the environment that you're in and what happens, like 0 to 7 years old being the extreme extremely important time that the child is developing their sense of self, their sense of ego, their, you know, relationships with other people, how they learn to get their needs met. And if a child at that age learns that they can only get their needs met through manipulation, then they start manipulating, and then it becomes ingrained in their character, it becomes their personality. That's how I see it. I think most of the time it's because of the circumstances that happen to that child. I think it's possible that there's a genetic marker, you know, on some of these cases, but I think in most of the cases it's caused at home. Someone here added, yes, me too. My ex grew up around a whole ring of them. Every narcissist that I've ever met came from a family and was raised by at least one narcissist or psychopath or sociopath. Everyone that I've met.
Yes, but I grew up and I was severely abused, and I turned myself around, and I started when I was able to, when I was 18, because I wanted to get better, because I was so unhappy. I was suicidal and miserable. And, you know, and once I got on that path, you know, on that spiritual path, it felt so good, and it was so enlightening, stuff I had never known, and I just continued with my whole life. And so I turned my life around. I mean, are they born or made? I don't know, but I did hear that. Excuse me?
You chose that. You chose a different life.
Yeah, exactly. I chose that. So they could choose it too if they wanted to.
Definitely. And I think that by the time they get so old, it's so ingrained, it becomes their personality that they don't change. But I do believe that if you intervene in a child's life between 0 and 7, and you create like positive behavioral changes in this person, you help them correct their behavior, you don't approach them like a normal, what Dr. George Simon calls a neurotic, which is, you know, a person who's, you know, repressing things and feeling a lot of guilt and shame and developing anxieties and things like this. These people are character disturbed. You have to approach them in very different ways where you teach them to correct the behavior. And I really do believe if you intervene in a child's life and you help them, you know, and you get them out of that environment and you help them make different choices, maybe the parents split and the child no longer has contact with the narcissist parent, the codependent parent is raising them, and the codependent gets better and they start healing themselves, they start healing the child. I do believe you can change a person's life. I also believe sometimes like early adulthood, strange things happens, like a strange illness, a strange injury, a strange life occurrence happens that could also really change someone's life before that personality gets really, really ingrained. You know, by the time someone is in their late 20s, early 30s, they're pretty much who they are. People pretty much don't change after that point. And the sad thing is that it is a choice. Like they choose to be like that. Like everything is a choice. By the time you're an adult, you have the freedom of will to make your own choices. No one else is telling you what to do. And if that's the path that you choose, then that's what you choose to be, right? You chose a different path. I chose a different path. Those of us who chose like this path, we chose a different path, right? Maybe we grew up with a narcissist, but we decided not to be like that for whatever reason, you know, and that was just our choice. Or maybe there were other influential people in our lives, you know, other mentors or someone who guided us in a positive way, or, you know, like some kind of early adulthood life circumstance.
I did it for selfish reasons because I was so unhappy, so miserable, so much pain. I was looking for anything to make me feel better. And I found a book, and I went from there. And I used to read just hours and hours and hours at a time. I went that, and I think that the path of doing, being a better person is a much easier path than the path, because I don't know, it seems like they have to be suffering just terribly, just doing the wrong thing all the time. And that's what they get off on, is doing the wrong thing, no matter what it is, and you have to suffer for that. I'd rather be at peace at night knowing, if I did make a mistake during the day or something, or with somebody, I didn't do it on purpose. You know what I mean? And so, I try to apologize and make up for it if I can, but it's much easier to have peace at night knowing that you did the right thing, and than to live the other way. In my opinion, I don't know.
I agree, but that's because you have a conscience and I have a conscience, right? But if you don't have a conscience and you don't have that weight, right? Because the reason why you're at peace doing the right thing is because you have a conscience. And if you do something wrong and you make a mistake, you feel that weight of your conscience at night. And that's what makes you want to make it better, to say that you're sorry, to do something different, to make amends, right? It's the weight of your conscience. These people don't have that weight. That's why they float around carefree, because they're not weighed down by conscience.
Yeah. Wow.
They learned at some point to shut that off, you know?
Well, even Sam Batman says that in one of his videos, the title is Narcissist Life, a Prolonged Nightmare. So it is painful for them.
I imagine it's painful to be them, right? To be that empty inside, to never be able to have that intimate human connection with another human, because to me, that's what life is all about, is the connections that we have, you know? And I can't imagine not having that. Like, what would it be like to never have intimacy? And I don't mean sex, I mean like emotional intimacy. What would it be like to never ever have that? It must be incredibly lonely, incredibly empty, and incredibly sad.
Yeah, and also, and I haven't heard too much about this. I'm just thinking, like, I don't think they're ever satisfied. Like, they're constantly striving for things, and then when they do get the thing, whatever it is that they want, I don't even think they take a minute to even appreciate they have it. Like, they just destroy it, throw it away, and then on to the next thing, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah. I think it's a sad existence, you know, but that's the path they choose. And, you know, it is a choice. Like, they choose to be like that. If they really wanted to rehabilitate their character, they would make that choice.
See, now that's what makes me not feel sorry, because if it's a choice and they could change, then okay, you deserve what you're getting. If you have a sad, empty life, you deserve it. But if you're born that way and you can't help it, then it's kind of sad.
Yeah. You know, I've heard about the tests, you know, where they're claiming they find a genetic marker relating to psychopathy in a very small percentage of them. It's possible, but I don't know that I'm sold on that. I believe a lot more in epigenetics than genetics. I believe that, you know, a lot of the things that we think are passed down in our genes are actually belief systems that are passed down in families. And subscribing to those belief systems can develop physical issues, can develop personality issues. And so I'm not entirely sold. I mean, if there's scientific proof, then I'll look at that and I'll agree with it. But I really do think that a lot of it is life experience. And then by the time you're an adult, like, you make choices. Like, a lot of us went through a lot of adversity in childhood, and we didn't turn out to be an abuser. You know, it was a choice. We could have been the abuser, but we weren't. And I really think that, you know, we all have that freedom of choice, the free will. One sociopath that I know, my former business partner, does not believe in free will. And he would talk it and talk it and talk it. There really is no such thing as free will. Everything is predestined. And I thought, wow, what a perfect belief system to have. If you go around abusing people and exploiting people and just saying, hey, it was meant to be. There's no such thing as
but here's the thing, that the part that makes me so mad and sick, that they get so much pleasure and joy from hurting people and destroying people, you know, the way they do. They take pleasure. Oh God, great pleasure in that.
Yep. Yeah, that's the sadism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not about free will. That's your emotions here, that you take pleasure in that. You know, like, we take pleasure in if we could help someone, or we did a good thing, you know, or it made someone happy, or you know, that we take pleasure in that. And,
right.
you know, somebody say, you make me miserable, or you make me unhappy. Well, that crushes me. I don't want to do that. You know.
Right.
And he says there's no free will. Okay, fine. He has to do those things he's doing, but does he have to enjoy it so much? And
Right.
you know he enjoys it.
True that. Oh, someone said, but I don't that because they have no feelings. So how can they know what they're missing out on? Like real love, a connection of deep intimacy with another human being. I don't get that. How can they know what they're missing out on? I don't know that. I mean, so if they haven't experienced it, they can't totally know it. But I think my suspicion is that they get a sense of it, because you know how intuitive they are to know what your vulnerabilities are, know what's important to you and all that. I get the feeling that they have a sense of what they're missing. Like they see two people who are experiencing that intimacy. And I think they get kind of maybe jealous or enraged about that, because they know there's something there that they're not capable of, that they will never experience, but they don't exactly have a point of reference of what exactly it feels like because they can't experience it. But I do feel like they get the sense that there's something there that they're not in on. That's my suspicion.
You know, they're so intuitive, and they know, they can figure out really quick, how to push the buttons, what makes you happy, what things you. I'm not like that. I'm not that intuitive. I can't meet somebody and automatically know what is going to upset them, what's going to make them happy. You know what I mean? Like they can do that. I can't.
You know, it's sad because they're using their intuition or their psychic abilities in that way. And, imagine if they would use that for some good purpose, what good they could do if they could intuitively sense other people's pain in a way that they use that to help other people. That would be a whole different scenario. But they're using it to exploit people, to manipulate people, and to hurt them. And
okay, I have another question for you then, because, all right, so how this guy made me fall in love with him is, obviously now I know, he was mirroring me. I mean, it was like I fell in love with myself, because he was trying to do, he's everything that I liked, he liked. And he was doing everything he could to make me fall in love with him. He knew all the right things to do, and he did them, all right? So here I am, completely in love with him. He knows it. Now it's time to, devalue and discard me. So why didn't he forget that and just enjoy that he's got somebody so in love with him? If not me, then somebody else, because I'm sure he's done it before. He's going to do it again. So why not stop there? Now this person's so in love with me, it feels so good, but they don't go that way. They have to destroy it. So I've seen people saying that they're actual demons. Now, I don't know if they're demons or if they're demon possessed, but do you have an opinion on that, if about demons?
I feel like they can't help themselves. And I feel like there is some supernatural sort of explanation for it. I'll make a video one day about what I saw in ayahuasca about it, and how I kind of came to understand that it was some sort of energy, like a mind virus that gets spread. And I think that's something that's going on. Some people talk about demons. Dr. Sam Vaknin talks about narcissism is actually the Antichrist. Like what the Bible calls the Antichrist is actually this energy of narcissistic abuse. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because we're definitely living in a time of total epidemic of this. I definitely think there's some kind of supernatural component, whether some people see it, as a demon or some sort of evil energy or like a virus or the Antichrist. I think there's something going on there.
Now, do you think that we're living in an epidemic of this now, or it's always been this way and we just didn't know because we didn't have the internet and weren't able to connect, with technology the way we are? Because back in the 70s, I grew up in this.
I definitely think this has been around for a long time. In the vision that I went on, I went back to like the 16 or 1700s, and I was watching it there. And maybe it's been going on long before that. And what I understood was that it has something to do with fame and fortune, and once, you know, abusing that power of fame and fortune, and something to do with that. And so, like, what I understood was that this has been going on for centuries, if not millennia. I think that it's becoming an epidemic now. I think it's ever since World War II in the 50s. I think that's when the boom happened. I think that there's been a lot of, I don't want to get too out there, but I do think there's been a lot of mind control that's happening through media, through entertainment, through Hollywood, things like that that have been going on. Even like the MK Ultra program in the United States. I think all of that, you know, Dr. Mengele from World War II, and the psychiatric, the way that he was figuring out how to fragment the mind through trauma-based mind control, it's exactly like narcissistic abuse. And so I think it exploded around 1950s. And I think, like, you know, nowadays you're seeing generation after generation of this being carried on. And at this point, it is like an utter epidemic. I don't think it's new. I think it's been around. I think it was much smaller, you know, in the reach that it had.
Well, I definitely agree with you about programming the mind, because my mind was programmed a certain way, but I reprogrammed my mind.
Right.
You know, over a period of years. You know, it's over from age 3 to 17, my mind was programmed a certain way, you know, in a negative way, and I turned that around. Of course, not overnight. It took many, many years, but you know, so yeah, and still to this day, to today, I practice programming my mind.
Exactly. Because you have to reprogram it, you know, because when you have these old belief systems running these old programs that are unhealthy, in order to create something new in your life, you have to retrain your mind. You have to reprogram your nervous system to run new neural pathways, you know, that'll lead you in the direction of success or whatever it is that you're trying to create in your life, like emotional well-being, peace of mind, you know, and the mind can change. The neuroplasticity is what they call it. You know, Harvard did this study on like 40 years of people meditating. And what they found was, like, after this long period of time, like, their brains do change. The neuroplasticity, like new neural connections formed. People are able to change. And I think that we forget we have this power. You know, a lot of times in society, we forget we have this power, you know, and we take what's given to us versus creating what we want in life, remembering we have that freedom, the freedom of free will.
Yeah, there's this girl, and I haven't seen her again. She's this random girl that does YouTube videos. She's not a professional at all. She just had been through narcissistic abuse, and she was doing videos, you know, just trying to help people. And she was very helpful. I don't know her name. I just only saw like 1 or 2 of her videos, but she's still kind of a mess. But she's in therapy, and like her therapist told her that when you are abused for a prolonged period of time, that it can act, even as an adult, you know, it can rewire your brain. I mean physically rewire your brain.
Yep.
Now you can fix it back again, but it just takes a lot of time. I mean, to the point where, you know, and probably everybody's gone through it. After you get out of the abuse, you can't concentrate on things. You can't focus right.
Yep.
Your brain has been rewired, and now you have to work to put it back, you know, put it back together the right way.
That's exactly it.
But it's a physical thing, not just, you know, a mental, emotional thing. It's actually physical.
It's both. I did 2 episodes in my Santa 12-week series on this, and one was on your brain, like the actual physical hardware, and the other was on the programming in your mind. And I talked about Dr. Daniel Amen's work with the brain scans and stuff, and how he talked about that. And then if you look up the amygdala hijack, you can find out how, like, the amygdala, which is like the anxiety center of the brain, like the fear part, right? And when it gets triggered over and over again, it gets permanently stuck on. And then also, like, a whole lot of neural connections develop there. So it becomes enlarged because there's all these neural connections. And that's why you're like in constant anxiety, like the PTSD, even after the abuse. And then the hippocampus, which is another part that works with that in the brain, it works with especially short-term memory. So learning and remembering things. And what they found is that the hippocampus actually shrinks from abuse. So the amygdala gets bigger, the hippocampus shrinks. So the anxiety and fear gets bigger, but the learning, the memory gets smaller, right? And so like that actually changes the brain. And that's why we have to work to overcome this, to reprogram the brain, to restructure the brain, rewire the nervous system. And meditation is really powerful for this purpose, you know, changing your brain.
Yeah. But you have to educate yourself, and you have to be really dedicated to it and to getting better. And God, I wish there was something that could be done to stop these people, because it's so damaging. Just like what I was telling you, you know, about the screaming and the rages that he would go into in my own home, in my apartment. When he would do that, I felt like I was lost. Like I wanted to run somewhere, but there was nowhere to run. I just couldn't take it anymore. I said, please stop it. You know, you're tearing my nerves. I can't take it. I felt like I was lost. Like I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to turn.
It's psychological terror. It's like terrorism of the mind, you know, when someone is doing that to you, and it paralyzes you.
I don't think he knew how bad he was, because he didn't know my history, you know, of abuse growing up. So I don't think he knew how bad he was hurting me. I mean, if he knew, he would love it, but no, I don't think he knew.
Right, because if they're so self-absorbed, they just don't see the effect on other people.
I think he was trying to keep me in a state of fear all the time, or a state of anxiety or whatever. I think he was trying to do that, probably. I mean, yeah.
Right. Now, if you look at that and you apply it to, say, the media, which is constantly pumping out messages of fear, right? This is happening on a societal level. It's like the same thing.
You mean like the news and stuff, like always telling you bad stories all the time about, I never watch the news. I have no idea what's going on in the world because I don't watch it.
I'm sorry. Someone wrote here, entitlement who? I'm sorry. Can you tell me what, can you expand a little bit on that? I'm not sure what you meant. Let's talk about that and then let's wrap it up because it's been almost 2 hours. Okay. About what name of the person she said on YouTube. Oh, do you remember who that person was? You were saying you were watching this person's YouTube channel. I think it was a woman, you said?
Oh, the one that I said was this random girl and she was kind of a mess.
Yeah.
That one. I can't find her again. She says she's like 48 years old. She's a blonde. She has blonde hair, and she sits at her kitchen table sometimes. This one video, she was sitting on her bed and was trying to pay her bills, and she was doing a video showing how she paid her bills because she had just come out of the abuse, and so she couldn't focus. So she had to write down everything that needed to be done, including like her daughter asked for some hair dye, so she has to write that down because she can't. Her mind has been rewired to where she cannot focus, and she has to write everything down. Now, eventually, she'll get better. She keeps working on herself, but at this point right now, she's in a fog and she can't remember anything.
Right. Did she have an American?
But no, I don't. I'm sorry. What?
Did she have an American accent?
Yes, she was an American lady, and very nice. And she was in therapy, and she's just come out of the abuse. I wish I had her name, but it was a couple months ago I saw her, and I don't know. I haven't been able to find her again. I haven't really looked for her, but I haven't seen her again.
It's not ringing a bell. I feel like I haven't heard it. She said, "I get that I could not remember a thing." Yeah. Yeah, it's really.
But the name of it was complex PTSD, a c-ptsd complex. It's when I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think it's when you were abused when you were a child, but then again re-abused when you were an adult, or it's when you were abused as an adult. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's complex PTSD.
I think it's
that
like an
rewires your brain.
ongoing nature of abuse, repetitive without getting help, like not knowing that you had PTSD compounds into this complex PTSD over time. If I understand, I think that's, she was saying, yeah. So was that the
Yeah,
title?
can I just suggest one thing?
Sure.
Okay, I don't know if she's new, but I just found her, and her thing is overcoming narcissism, and she gives credit to the people that she quotes. But maybe I'll tell you why she's so good. Now, Sam Batman, he's so educated, so smart, that sometimes he uses words or he goes off and and he's kind of hard to follow sometimes. She'll take what he says and put it in plain language where you could completely, totally understand it. And also, she was in a 6-year relationship with this guy, and she gives antidotes, examples and stories of the kind of stuff he did. And it hits home so hard that when I first found her, like, one video was all I could watch, and her videos aren't long; they're like 10 minutes, because I was so exhausted, because it was like I just relived it. Now I can listen to one or two, but it makes you exhausted, because she makes you feel like you're reliving it all over again, because it just hits home so hard. She goes under overcoming narcissism, and you can't see her face. All it is it's a black screen. It's just her talking. But she's really, really good, and she's got a lot of videos.
I think I just recently found this channel, Overcoming Narcissism. Is that what you said?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's just a black screen. You can't see her. She's just talking. And her boyfriend was in a rock band, and he was just this big, oh my God, what an idiot this guy was.
Does she make videos while driving sometimes and only shows the road?
No, I don't like her. That's not her. That's not her. This one is just a black screen all the time. You never see anything, just a black screen.
Okay, I need to look that up again. I feel like I just saw this on YouTube. I'm going to check that out again. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up for tonight. Thank you, ladies, so much for participating. And I'm sending you both a big hug and hope to see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.